Greetings, everyone. Welcome to Connect Africa. Good evening, good afternoon, and good morning, depending where you are. So today we are here joined by my brother, Comrade Cabala, to give us all the details that we need. What is going on in the Democratic Republic of Congo over the crisis in the eastern part of the country, actually. Before we go, let me just give, first of all, welcome, Comrade Cabala.
Greetings, Queen. I'm happy to be here.
Can you please introduce yourself? I know you as a member from the African Continental Unity Party. This is the second time you join Connect Africa, but today you are coming on a different capacity to give us, details on what's happening from in this crisis in the eastern part of DRC. You are also from DRC, so please tell us about yourself.
Thank you, Queen. Firstly, uh, let me wish peace and greetings to all African people around the world, and particularly to those who are homeless right now in the east part of the Democratic Republic of Congo due to the ongoing crisis that is developing over there. Those whose schools have disrupted, businesses have been burned down, and all those kind of things. I wish them peace and I wish them tranquility and love. From deep of our hearts, we are with them in our prayers and thoughts. So my name is Cabala, born in DRC. Currently, I'm talking to you from South Africa. By professional, I am a development consultant and scientific research consultant as well. I am author of 3 books. I'm a member of the African Continental Unity Party and the Free-Minded Pan-African Academy. I have my background in engineering studies, community development, and development studies. Thank you very much. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you very much. And we join you here from Connect Africa, wishing that peace for eastern part of DRC and all over the continent and globally, actually. So I will ask from what you know, what is the root cause of this crisis, as this is not the first time the M23 rebels, occupying the city of Goma. This happened in 2012, I believe. But let me ask you this first. As it happened on Sunday night, it was, and then we enter like the 5th day or the 4th day since now M23 rebels backed by the Rwandan force, since that's not a secret, also controlling the city of Goma. Now, daily, the information that are coming through the mainstream media and the Pan-African platforms are varying from day to day. Now, from what we stand as of today, Tshisekedi, we all have hoped when Ruto came out as a chairperson of the Eastern African Community, telling us that both the Rwandan president and DRC have agreed to come on the meeting that EAC, the Eastern African Community, is convening, which happened today. Now, the DRC president, Tshisekedi, has ditched it. On the other hand, Kagame was there. And also there was one negotiation or mediation offer from Turkey, again, which DRC has, ignored it or said they're not interested to take part. So at this point, what is DRC looking for? What kind of solution is DRC or the Felix Tshisekedi administration is looking for? Is there something that the Africa we want in terms of creating that African solution to African problems?
Well, let me say this: President Ruto and all others that have come up with proposal for the meeting and negotiations, so forth and so on, they are, in most cases, they are two-faced, in a sense that they've tried to humiliate not just President Tshisekedi, but the whole country as a DRC. And that is based on the statements that Sometimes President Ruto have been making himself some erratic statements that have no foundation in the historical analysis of the situation that is going on in the Congo and the conditions that they were posing uh, for as a part of that meeting or the negotiation. They kind of forcing him, I mean the President Tshisekedi, to go to negotiation with the the terrorist groups or the rebels that are attacking or that have taken control of the east part of the Congo as we're speaking now. And that, in principle, I think Tshisekedi didn't want to negotiate with them because this is a negative force, like a terrorist group, a rebel group that is trying to destabilize an elected government. Let's go from that way, and you trying to force the government to negotiate with them. Don't I think at some point it didn't suit well with the current president of DRC, and on top of that, it is reported that the Congolese guy who is actually heading the movement, who is a puppet within that organization, that rebellion organization, he was being hosted by the President Ruto himself in Kenya. So looking at uh, all those aspects of this conflict or of this crisis, I think President Ruto is no longer a valid person to bring a kind of to call for a mediation that will be unbiased, towards everyone. So in that regard, I think Chisekedi decided to ditch the meeting. And as to what is happening now, I think he has said that he's waiting for a resolution from the United Nations. I don't know what resolution he's waiting for, but I guess he's also strategically thinking and studying what is an appropriate response to deliver in response, of course, to the crisis or to the support of Rwanda to, in the current crisis and current development in the east part of the Congo.
Okay, thank you for that, Brother Cabala. Now, walk us through back to the root cause of this problem. How, what is M23 representing? What is their end goal? What is the problem? Why they become, why they are fighting against the government of DRC's government? Yeah, walk us through back there and explain to us or shed some light, at least how it is seen from the African perspective, or also you can take from as a Congolese.
Yeah, so I think for you to better understand what is happening between DRC and Rwanda through M23, you can try to understand or to look at what is happening between Russia, Ukraine, and the Western powers. And those two parallel narratives can already bring more light in the situation going on in the Congo right now. So there are two things. The first thing is that there is a tendency among a group of Africans, mostly the Tutsi people, to think of themselves as supreme or superior to the rest of Black Africans. And therefore, they have to be in charge of, if not the whole continent, but at least of the Central Africa. They have to dominate that part of Africa. And this has been demonstrated in the past through different events. So you look at Burundi, Museveni is a Tutsi. You go to Rwanda, Paul Kagame is a Tutsi. This group of people, they have that supremacy mindset to think of themselves as superior race because they look at themselves as race, even though it's politically or social cultural construction, because realistically, there's no difference between the rest of Black Africans, and the so-called Nilotic, the Tutsi people. These are the constructions that were brought by, of course, the Western imperialist, Western anthropologists who came trying to divide people. They created these terms of Nilotic and Bantu and stuff like that, though we are all Black people. But I think the current tendency has built itself on those neo-colonial or colonial narratives to then build some tendency among this group of Africans, particularly the Tutsi, to believe that they are superior and they have to control the rest of Africa, but starting from the Central Africa. Now, one historical event that can back what I'm saying is during 1994, because everywhere on the media, when you listen to what is being, of course, to the propaganda that is being promoted out there, is that this group of these 20 M23 rebels are actually Congolese, that the Congolese government is trying to deny their citizenship, and therefore uh, they've picked up arms and got support from Rwanda to come and claim, which is totally wrong, because this conflict didn't start with the Tshisekedi, didn't start with the previous government. It started right at 1994 when the regime changed. 1997 when the regime in DRC changed. Before that, it was Zaire led by Mobutu, and there was never issue about these people, Banyamulenge or whatsoever. There was never problem about them, about their citizenship. They were citizen of Zaire at that time. No problem, no problem at all. But when the United States and the allies, France and other countries, decided to remove Mobutu from power through coup d'etat to bring in Cabila, who was assassinated in 2001, sorry. They made him sign some kind of contracts that we bring you to power, but you want to give us the control of the army, of the economy. I'm talking now about the Tutsi Rwandans. He had to give them the control of the army and the control of the country, economically speaking, and the control of that eastern part of the country because it's rich in resources. And if you know the history of Congo, you will know that the current uh, defense secretary of Rwanda was at that time the defense secretary of Congo because of those contracts that they've made him sign. James Kabarebe is the current defense secretary of Rwanda. He was this defense secretary of the Democratic Republic of Congo between 1997 to 2000, if I'm not mistaken, 1998, 1999. Right? So
So
this is
Congo,
already,
after it became two,
say again.
this defense minister James was the defense minister of Congo, DRC, after the DRC and Republic of Congo separated, or
No, no, no,
defense
no.
minister
We
of
don't talk
Zaire.
if not the, we're talking here about the Democratic Republic of Congo.
Yeah,
It's
DRC.
nothing with the DRC. There's nothing with the Republic of Congo. That's totally something different. So
Okay.
what I'm saying, the Democratic Republic of Congo was previously Zaire,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
1997, through coup d'etat, of course, sponsored by American, European, French, all those people, they kicked off or they kicked out of the power Mobutu, who was then president, to bring in another president, was Kabila,
Kabila. Yeah.
right? But yes, but they forced him to accept certain deals that were not acceptable. As I've just said, they imposed a Rwandese military to become the defense secretary of the Democratic Republic of Congo. I'm talking about James Kabarebe, who is currently now the defense secretary of Rwanda. So the
Okay.
tendency was already there to make this group of people, firstly, themselves wanting to become in charge or to control and to dominate the rest of Africa, starting from Central Africa. That is the first thing. And the second thing, by the fact that they made themselves available to champion that agenda, the United States, France, and other European countries found a kind of a vital ground to eventually materialize the agenda of destabilization of Africa. In a sense that, if you look in the history, like before in the like before the end of apartheid in South Africa, you will see that the apartheid regime in South Africa, the role that it was playing. Oh la la. I think I'm running out of battery with this camera.
Okay.
Just excuse me. I want to change the camera now.
Okay. Okay. It's fine.
Uh, Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sure you'll be able to see me.
Yeah. Yeah. Sure.
Good. So I was saying that the role that the South African apartheid regime was playing in Africa was exactly the same role that the Rwanda is playing today, of destabilizing the continent. That's why the apartheid regime was involved in Angola, Mozambique, and all these countries that were seeking for independence. They were being sanctioned by American and European powers to destabilize Africa. So, right after 1994, when Black people took power in South Africa, the Western powers were directly or were automatically engaged in seeking a replacement to the apartheid regime in South Africa. And Rwanda appeared to be the proper candidate because of their tendency to believe that they are superior to the rest of Africans, and their geographic localization made it essential for the Americans to begin sponsoring them, not just Rwanda, but Uganda as well. And that's the reason why when you look at the statistics, you see that Rwanda and Uganda are the are the two countries. I think Kenya comes in the third position. Are the countries that have been receiving military aids from the United States of America, from France and other European countries above the rest of countries on the continent. So this is the bottom of what is happening in the Congo today. It's not something that relates to a certain group of people that is being denied their citizenship or whatsoever. But in any case, when you try to justify an action that you think is not legal and is not right, you're going to have to create a narrative that will eventually back up your actions. And that is what we see right now in DRC. When we're talking right now, there's been over 6 million people that have been killed since 1997 up to today. And this is truly a genocide. And nobody's speaking about it. All the European countries are not talking about it. The United States of America does not talk about it because they are the ones who are driving this agenda. And of course, certain Africans, including the leadership in Burundi, Uganda, sorry, and in Rwanda, making themselves available tools of the Western hegemonic agenda to destabilize and destroy Africa. This is exactly what has been happening.
So now, with this, what is the end goal of M23?
The end goal of M23, they openly talk about revolution. They claim to be Congolese. Of course, truly, some Congolese can be
Let's
found among
clarify
them.
something. Are they Congolese? How are they viewed by the Congolese people? Are they Congolese?
Yes, there are Congolese among the M23 groups, yes. But it doesn't mean that they have, those Congolese are being denied the citizenship. For example, the guy who is actually the head of that movement is called Nanga. He was the head of Electoral Commission in DRC in 2018, 18's election. He is the one who actually declared the current president as the winner of the 2018 elections. So, can somebody like that, at that level of leadership in a country, be the person who is being denied the citizenship to then take arms to come and fight against the regime? So, in reality, it's a group of Congolese that have been bought, right, to then cover the story so that when everyone looks at what is happening, is like, oh man, this is just among the Congolese, they're fighting themselves. Of course, white men today can no longer come to Africa to fight us or to kill us if there are a group of Negroes that are available to just do that task at a cheaper price. So white men cannot just come because he will just have to hire all these available Africans who can do that at a very competitive, cost. So these people, of course, they can be Congolese, but the agenda which they're carrying is not a Congolese agenda, is an agenda of making, as I said, materializing what the dream that Paul Kagame has had for a long time, which is to become the master of Central Africa, which in reality he is a Hitler of Africa because of the killings that he has been doing in the eastern part of the Congo. So, if you ask me, what is the what is the end goal of M23? I think it leads to nothing else except to facilitate the Rwandese supremacy. I don't even want to say Rwandese because it doesn't involve all the people from Rwanda, but the Rwandese regime, right, headed by Paul Kagame, the Hitler of Africa. That is the end goal, to make him the master of the Central Africa. That is exactly the end goal.
But is there any because now some are saying they want to also claim, we have heard, for example, you have seen it, Julius Nyerere's speech in the 1990s where he make it, I think, in the United States or in the UN, in New York, saying that, explaining the root cause of this problem, and I think kind of the opposite from what you said, that these people like have been denied their citizenship, and this is why now we cannot return them. But if you return them, if the Democratic Republic of Congo government returns them, then tells them to go back to Rwanda, then with what land? Are they going to be given land or something? This kind of argument, and this has been viral since yesterday all over the internet. So what do you say about that? What's your view about that? Because it seems this is in contradict from what you have just told us.
No, and I just highlighted the history before even the current regime, when I mentioned that these people were living in Congo even before Cabila, before the regime changed, before Congo changed from Zaire to Democratic Republic of Congo in 1997. And there was never an issue. I don't know if you know any history that you can point out to of these people being persecuted prior to 1997 by the Congolese government. Even after 1997, there's no history of a group of people being massacred because they are belonging to Rwanda. However, just like in every society, there are local leaders who may be driven by by tribalism, because it is everywhere in Africa, who will be looking at those people because they are in their proximity to say that, okay, these people are not Congolese citizens. And there are those narratives around in DRC. You see some local leaders who will have those kind of speech to say that these people are not Congolese. These people came in this country at this period because of so and so reason. They came from Rwanda, which is true, some of them, of course. But there's no record of Congolese government going and then killing those people, removing them because they're not Congolese. That has never happened. That's why I'm saying that this is a cover-up story. And people who don't know what is happening, some of them who even claim to be historians, they buy into these narratives. Sometimes maybe they are being paid by the regime in Rwanda to spread these narratives so that they can eventually justify the actions that is taking place in Congo as we're speaking right now. You have never seen the Congolese army breaking through the borders, going to Rwanda, doing what Rwanda has been doing. Rwanda and Uganda has been doing DRC since 1997. They've been massacres. We're talking about millions of people that have died because of what they've been doing. And yet people close eyes to this and they trying to push a narrative that does not stand. So, but that is not the only narrative. There are a lot of narratives that these people or Paul Kagame has been using to eventually cross the border and come in. Another narrative is that during the genocide in Rwanda in 1994, there was a group of Hutu who were moved from Rwanda by the United Nations into DRC, and these people came with their guns. They were in the camp, and they were eventually being hosted by the regime in Congo, then Paul Kagame at some point was using a narrative that I'm crossing the border to attack these people because they are organizing themselves in Congo to attack back Rwanda. Then I'm crossing to attack these people. But in the process, civilians are being killed, houses are being burned down, villages are vandalized, and in final analysis, Rwanda is the biggest producer of coltan, which it doesn't have. Is the biggest producer of gold, which it doesn't have. So
Yeah.
is this really about a group of people that you want to protect because they're being persecuted, or is about mineral resources and control of the wealth of that country? So I think, of course, the propaganda is powerful because it's being championed by people who have a voice and who have a platform to talk. So you
Mhm.
will hear all these things, and you don't. How many people? I mean, if they talk about denial of citizenship, does it justify 5 to 6 million people, children mutilated, women raped, house burned, villages vandalized? Is there any justification to those kind of actions? And why is Paul Kagame not being blamed for that? We have a regime change, revolutionary that is revolutionary movement that is taking place in West Africa between Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger. Already we see the Western powers putting a lot of pressure on these countries to organize elections. They're putting a lot of pressure on these military revolutionaries to organize elections so that the regime can change and we can have a democracy, as they call it. But in Rwanda, since 1997, why they don't put the same pressure on Paul Kagame to really organize elections, proper elections, so that we can see a regime change? Why they don't talk about the period or the many years that he has been in power in that country, sidelining opposition voices, you know, jailing dissenting voices, all those kind of things. Why they don't put the same pressure in Uganda? Museveni has been there for 30 plus years. So already, if you analyze the bottom of these conflicts, you will understand one thing is that the Western powers cannot allow you, especially if you are a rich country such as Congo, such as Nigeria, such as Mali, all these countries, they cannot allow you to really shift your mind from conflicts, terrorism, and all this chaos that we have in Africa to put your mind or to focus your mind on how to develop your country with your resources. So they will always want to create a situation that really drains more of your resources so that you cannot concentrate on the well-being of your citizens. So you have to spend more money in wars, in combating terrorism, instead of investing in the education of your people, in the healthcare, in the infrastructures that will create more jobs and opportunities. So this is a situation to make sure that Africa does not take off from here. But at the same time, the mineral resources of Africa continue to eventually support the development agenda of Western countries. And this is happening with the collaboration of some so-called leaders in Africa, in the person such as Paul Kagame and Museveni in Burundi, and a complicity, of course, of other leaders such as Ruto and all these people who have been eventually making comments that do not really make sense. You're on mute, please.
Now, thank you very much for that, elaboration and shedding light on the subject. But let me rephrase again my previous question. Now, we have seen M23 occupying the city of Goma back in 2012, if I'm not mistaken. What escalated the current situation? How can we understanding in the contemporary history that's, in the contemporary way in what's happening right now?
I mean, it's the same agenda, maybe with the different players, different techniques or tactics, but the agenda has been all the same, right? It's about occupation, it's about breaking the country in different pieces, just like they broke Sudan. It's about appropriation of the resources of the country. It's about impoverishing the local population, including the whole Africa. So that has been the agenda. So there's nothing new to this reality. And you will notice that every time there's a new regime, you will see the the same narrative being kind of revitalized again. You will see if it's not M23, is another rebel groups with a different name. So of course, they made an incursion in 2012 in Goma, and it was settled through dialogue. And they they wanted a key position in the army. The people who were actually driving the M23 at that time. So now what they're saying openly is that we want revolution to overthrow the regime. But the bottom line is that they want control. I mean, Rwanda wants control because the support that the Rwandese regime gives to these people has to be in exchange of something. When they overthrow the regime in Kinshasa, is probably to do or to materialize what Rwanda failed to do in 1997 when Kabila decided to kick out of the country all the Rwandese officials who were working in the Congolese army, such as James Kabarebe and all others. And one thing that you need to realize is this, historically anyway. When they made him sign the contracts, one of the deals that they made him sign in 1997 was that the east part, as I said, east part of the country must be given to Rwanda, right? And when he came to power, he changed that. He didn't allow the situation. He didn't really comply with all the requirements that were forced on him when he signed the contracts. For example, he didn't give them the east part of the country. He removed all the Rwandese officials in the army. He tried to restructure the things. That's where the current war that we have in Congo since 1997 started. It's about that, right? It's not about any group of people being denied a citizenship. It's about them not getting what they wanted to get out of the deal that they signed or they made Kabila signing. And eventually he was killed in 2001 because of that. And his son, Joseph Kabila, replaced him, and the war has been continuing just like that up until today.
Do we have that contract?
The narrative...
Is that available?
Say again?
The contract, is it available on internet?
These are not the things that you can find on papers on the internet. But of course, it was signed, it was forced on him. As I said, Rwandese officials were actually leading Congolese army. You can check that on internet. Who was the Secretary of Defense between 1997 and 1999 in Congo? It was James Kabarebe, who is the Rwandese official. So it's clear out there, But as per contract itself, I don't think that there's something like that in a public domain.
I think it was the same thing also for these Western African states, the one who withdrew the Alliance of the Sahel states, the colonial tax that the French government has imposed on all French colonies, the 11 component of the colonial tax. I'm sure maybe you know about it. And that came available in the internet when these states started to detach themselves from ECOWAS. But perhaps, don't you think it's time, although that decision is for the government of DRC, don't you think it's time for DRC to release that contract so the world knows the real cause of, or the root cause of the problem?
Well, everyone who study the history of Congo knows about it. There are a lot of books that have been written about that, explicitly explaining the whole development that took place between the former president Kabila, Rwanda, Uganda, it's sometimes as well Burundi and the United States of America, how they were brought to, how Kabila was brought to power, with the support of Bill Clinton. So all those things are of public domain, of course. But as for the document, I'm not in a position to say whether the
Yeah.
Congolese must release it or not. But everybody who understands the history of the Great Lake will know that that was the deal. That was actually what happened. And as I said, there are a lot of books that can explain better what happened then, what was made, what was forced, uh, what US forced Kabila to agree with, and what got him killed. All those reasons can be found in a lot of books that speak about Congo crisis.
But yeah, well, this is of course my opinion, but I think most of the people, it's in the digital era. Other people were also assuming that we Africans know about these colonial tax components imposed by the French government, but up until recently, it wasn't really, if it wasn't for this, Confederation of the Sahel states exposing it more and more, and their activists inside the country. Now, when I learned that, now I'm moving to the next question, that DRC is a member of two regional blocs in Africa, that's namely the SADC, the Southern African Development Community, and the Eastern African Community, which it joined recently. Now that you explained it, how the Ugandan Museveni, the Rwandan Kagame, and now the current president of Kenya, Ruto, are instruments or the tools to enable the Western government to do what it wants to do in DRC. Do you think that is perhaps, I don't know which comes first, that DRC is a member of, whether it was first to SADC or EAC? That's why perhaps DRC did not really feel safe to be just in Eastern African community. And do you think that's why also they chased out the Eastern African community forces and then let the SADC? Why the need, first of all, to be a member of two regional blocs? And what is the relation of DRC to both blocs? And
Yeah,
how
so
it is playing in the current situation?
so Congo has been member of SADC for a long time,
Okay.
right? I think it's joined the East African community 2 years back
Yeah.
in 2023. But for a long time, it has been a member of SADC, of Southern African Development Community. And that is where I blame the current leadership in Congo, because apparently it didn't have the vision since 2018 when they came to power. There was no clear vision, and in his mind he tried to multiply connections to be at the same time member of the East African community, at the same time member of SADC, probably to try to get more connections to mitigate the crisis. That is why sometimes when he goes to East African community, doesn't get a response that he wants in the crisis, he turns back to the SADC community. And sometimes when SADC community comes up with the proposals that he finds not pleasing, or he turns back to East African community. It's all according to, I think it's kind of political maneuvering on his side to try to find a balance in terms of who can I align with in order to kind of support to resolve the crisis. And also, I look at it as a naivete on his side to try to believe that for the fact that I joined the East African community, I will be able to get help to solve the crisis in DRC. And I think that is wrong, and has been wrong since day one, because this is not a crisis that will be settled by means of, I don't know, negotiation. You have to negotiate with people who logically want a solution, but not people who want to oppress and dominate, because that leads to, of course, to a suffering of other people, those who will be oppressed and dominated. And that is not a kind of negotiation that you want to have, and that is what has been clearly demonstrated by all the maneuverings that the neighboring countries of DRC have been doing. So I think I do blame, firstly, the leadership in DRC for lack of vision, and secondly, for thinking that by joining the East African community, uh, they will be able to get help to solve the problem, without realizing that the East African community, the key members of the East African communities, are actually the instigators, or actually the pioneers of the crisis in DRC. So it's, for me, is a stupidity for you to try to rely on the very same people who actually try to escalate the crisis that you are going through. I don't know if you understand what I'm saying. People who feed themselves through your suffering, people who get something out of your suffering, out of your debts, trying to rely on them to solve the same problem that they have created. It's a lack of strategy, a lack of leadership, most importantly, lack of vision in terms of how to solve the crisis in DRC. So I think it has been mostly that part of him uh, trying to have always leverage, such a way that if I get a negative response from West African community, well, SADC will back me up. If SADC disappoints me, East African community will back me up. And it is a general tendency of all Negro leaders on the continent. They always want to belong to platforms, to groups or organizations that they have not created themselves. And I'm always thinking that if NATO could open its borders or its doors for some African leaders to join, I think the majority of African leaders will bring their countries into NATO, simply because we want to belong to other things that have been created by other people than to create our own platforms. But that's a discussion for another day. But I think I've elaborated on your question as to why he has been member of the East African community as well as member of SADC community.
Yeah, interesting. I think that explains it. Why also perhaps he accepted, in my mind, okay, tell me if I'm correct. I think somehow Tshisekedi, after becoming a member of EAC, kind of regretted it. And that's why he accepted the mediation by Lorenzo, in which Kagame ditched it. And now totally also ditching the Eastern African community meeting that happened today. So I think it explains what you just said, explains it. And perhaps maybe after this, we might see the DRC withdrawing from EAC. This is a hypothesis in my mind anyway. Moving on the next question, help me to understand how the DRC army, the national army, is not capacitated in a way to defeat this rebel M23, now backed by Rwandan forces, having the international, the UN military there as a peacekeeping mission. It has a SADC there, and also there's their national army forces. How on earth we saw those forces giving up like that for those rebels? I mean, yes, they do, they are equipped. Yeah, how?
Yeah, the first thing that you need to consider as well, which is very important, is that Congo is under embargo to buy weapons. For what reason, you don't know. So this is a country that has been harassed for a long time, a country that has lost 6 million people, but you still impose embargo on that country so that it cannot buy capable weapons to defend itself and to protect its people. Already, this can maybe even help you to understand that the crisis there is not about a group of people whatsoever, but is more political, international, and neo-colonial, in all aspects. And with regard to those so-called mercenaries, international mercenaries, it's they were paid between 5 to 6 thousand US dollars per month to be there to protect. But as you know, it's luck as well. It brings me back to the point of the president or the leadership in DRC didn't have the vision and didn't have the skill, I should say, the skills of proper state management. That's the reason why they had to rely on the people who actually want the crisis to be there for the protection, you know, uh, instead of actually capacitating the national army. It may take 1 year, but investing in the national army and pay people well instead of paying soldiers 150 US dollars, and the ministers who are in the parliament is sleeping there. They are being paid, I don't know, 20 US dollars, 20,000 US dollars per month. And the soldiers who are supposed to fight, right, for your defense are being paid
Wow,
150 US
I
dollars.
just have to
So
unmute myself. $20,000 per month, seriously, for MPs?
yeah, those folks are getting a lot of money when you bring everything together, all the benefits, and some of them are getting even 25,000 US dollars. So that's why I said I think in part of it, big part of it, I do blame the current leadership for lack of proper management of the country and the lack of vision and direction. However, those and relying on those international, those mercenaries coming from, uh, some of them coming from America, some of them coming from France, and they had to drop weapons so quickly and so easily. Unfortunately, I think it serves all of us a lesson to understand uh, that for the true liberation that we want in Africa, we have to go deep within ourselves and build our own capacity to defend ourselves, to protect ourselves, and to defend what belongs to us as African people. I think we have been making these mistakes for a long time. Actually, even our ancestors in Egypt did the same mistakes to rely on the Greek mercenaries for protection. And we know what happened. And we're still doing the same thing today because we don't study our history.
100%. I agree with that. Just to add on what you said, not only having all those things, and even also we have seen those. A quick clarification on that one. Yesterday there was this video also at Connect Africa. I did a report on it that are around 200 or more than 200 Romanians that has been hired by DRC. Is that true, or is there a different story from DRC side?
I don't know the exact number, but yeah, I think there were mercenaries that Congo hired to secure the country in that eastern part of Congo. Even the president himself sometimes he's got mercenary as bodyguards. You will see white folks in his escorts to protect him, and I'm sure he will learn from this that he cannot rely on people who don't share your suffering to protect you.
So, but could that be a trust issue also? Because there was some controversies around his second term election winning. So, does he trust his own army, Tshisekedi?
Yeah, of course. I mean, when you trust issues everywhere. I think even in the US, trust issues already is always there. However, other people just seem to be able to deal with the trust issues and find the people among themselves that can be trusted. Something that we as African people have not yet fully understood, or I should say, the skills that we haven't as yet developed to find the people that are worthy of trust among ourselves and trust them. And I think you can be right because the conditions under which the elections were done, of course, can put him in a situation where he couldn't trust the match of the people in his entourage. He has to find maybe, foreign white mercenaries to protect and defend him, and even to hire some to go thinking that they'll be able to defend the east part of Congo.
Before I ask you what is your view for the lasting solution of this crisis, let's understand again the administration, the government of DRC. What kind of solution is the Tshisekedi's administration right now hoping for or looking for? In the beginning, I said now with the EAC, I don't think it's working. He did not
Yeah.
appear there in today's meeting. SADC, so far, I don't think they have offered any mediation currently after Sunday. We have seen Turkey, that's an outside player. Yes, Tshisekedi has also disregarded that. But we have seen Tshisekedi kind of begging or asking for the international community intervention. What more does he need after, especially after he chased them out, after all that rhetoric speech to chase out the UN peacekeeping mission? How do you see that now he's asking for the intervention?
Yeah, so the UN peacekeeping mission was also a failure. Remember, it was there for since
Anywhere,
1997.
actually, in Africa.
Yeah, and the discussion about the canceling of their contract in Congo didn't even start with Tshisekedi. It started with the previous government. Congo is spending a lot of money on those people to be there, but while they have been there, we count millions of deaths. So it comes to a common sense to realize that these people are not useful. They have to go. Maybe that money can serve to rebuilding the national army.
Aren't they
So,
paid by the UN? What do you mean it's Congo's cost?
of
DRC's
course,
cost.
Congo has to be charged for that. They're coming for peace, and Congo need to pay that cost. Need to pay that cost for the security. It doesn't come free of charge. So,
Maybe not
how
directly with cash, but there is something perhaps that is not public that Congo is paying to the
of
UN.
course, how do you think how do you think the UN is able to pay them? If the UN is paying them with money that is being donated, for example, by the United States, then the United States in return get money in concession or get some deals in DRC. So in literally at the end of the day, Congo is
Yeah,
paying high cost of that
something.
for that
Okay,
security.
okay, that I
Understand? So
understand.
as to the question of what he's thinking to do now, well, he said that he's preparing his response to Rwanda. Well, we can't believe in him now. I think we have lost trust in him because he made the same stories or the same propagandas during the campaign. He was questioned as to what will be his response if he's re-elected again in terms of the crisis in the DRC. And the response was that if one Congolese dies after I'm re-elected, I will invade Rwanda. And we know that he lied. He was just was just being a kind of demagogue to be elected. I don't know if it is the same thing that is doing now, or if he's properly having a solution. But if he has a solution as well, he can't cry towards the international community, which is responsible for the crisis. What I think is that I think the leadership in Congo needs to go and see Assimi Goïta in Mali and ask them how to organize your army and to fight against terrorist groups, and they have to go and see Ibrahim Traore to learn the strategy on how to fight this war, or to go to Niger to General Chani. I think those people have demonstrated their capacity to kick French out and to try to mitigate with the terror that is being sponsored by French and other international criminal regimes. So this may be something that Tshisekedi must do in order to learn, because it is out of sense for you to rely on the same international community that has been sponsoring the terror that you are suffering from. I don't know how they're trying to understand this. I don't know how they make sense, of their behavior and their decisions. So I don't know. I think we just have to wait and see what will he do, or what will his government do to mitigate with this crisis.
I love that. I love that how he has to consult each and everyone in the Sahel states for a solution. I love how you put it. But yeah, now let's move to uh, your own proposal as a Pan African. how can DRC solve this problem, or for that matter, Africa? What's happening in DRC for once and for for all? How can we solve this problem, or DRC itself, but on the continental level in a way that it addresses the root cause of the problem?
Okay, I look at it in two perspectives. The first perspective is, as a Pan-Africanist, I think the only thing that will liberate us is the unity of Africa, because the war in DRC, it may be seem distant to some Africans, but it's their war against the entire Africa. Because what we are fighting against, we're fighting against imperialism. And this same imperialism is one that undermines the efforts of Kenya, the efforts of the same Rwanda, Burundi, Uganda, you name it. All the countries in Africa are suffering from the hegemonic power of Western countries that we can call imperialism. The and this imperialism has become so internationalized that you cannot fight it yourself as a country and overcome it. Like, there's no way that a tiny country such as Gabon, such as Uganda, even Burundi can fight the international imperialism of Western hegemony and overcome it. Because overcoming the imperialism, that is what the liberation and emancipation of Africa means. So for me as a Pan-Africanist, I think that the ultimate solution as Pan-African will be to unite Africa, to defend Africa, to protect Africa. And that implies that instead of working harder in building like individual armies or individual capacity, which is still does not suffice to tackle the problem, which I called international imperialism, it's better that we come together and we consolidate our effort, because that is where lies our freedom and liberation against the Western powers. Because at the end of the day, you will find that the Western powers are at the center of what is happening in the Congo right now. Even though Rwanda will exploit the resources, but it doesn't even benefit as much as American corporates benefit from the mineral resources of Rwanda. You see? So those are the ones who sponsor this terror, and they're the ones who gain more out of it, because war is kind of investment, and they invest to support these rebels with weapons, with technical intelligence and stuff like that, and they are the ones who are getting more out of it. So that is my view as Pan-Africanist. But as for now, immediately, what has to be done, I think Congo need to organize itself and fight back Rwanda. The same thing that Rwanda has been doing in DRC, Congo should try to do the same thing in Rwanda, and you will see that people will be now willing to honestly negotiate and talk for peace. Because what Rwanda has been doing was to send a group of fighters overnight in DRC. They would burn the village, they will kill the children, they will rape the women, and before the sun is up, they run back into through the in the bush and go to Rwanda. And that's how we're counting 5 million. And Congo has been working on a defensive position, never been able to attack, never been decided to also attack. While we know in the strategy of war that offense or attacking is the best defense that you can have. So I think right now, to to create a kind of equal force, like to balance the forces, Congo should be able to significantly pose a kind of threat to the regime in Rwanda. Maybe from there we'll be able to sit down and talk as brothers, and find a peaceful solution and most lasting solution. And of course, some of us will stop to be utilized by Western powers to create chaos in their neighbors' countries. If you understand that by trying, you will also count deaths among your people, I think maybe the balance will shift from there on.
Maybe I missed it somewhere when you explain or when you try to respond to the questions that I have forwarded. But do you think any of this has to do with tribalism, as in most cases in the continent? The root cause is tribalism.
I think tribalism is a tiny has a very small influence in what is happening in Congo now. Maybe tribalism can be seen today or can be can have its effects today, but the foundation of this crisis has nothing to do with the tribalism. Indeed, it's actually what creates tribalism, the foundation of this crisis. And I said the foundation of this crisis has to be always traced back to the Western colonial powers and the willingness of other African people to make themselves the tools of Western colonial powers in the destruction of other African people. So, this is an agenda, as I said, of control and domination. And I've explained from the beginning that it is well known fact by that has been explained by some scholars on on African affairs on that area that the Tutsi group of Africa have always think of themselves or thought of themselves as superior race above the rest of Africans. And therefore they have to be in control, in charge, and in dominant position. So all these things feed in to build up, and that's why this situation becomes so complex because there are a lot of factors that have contributed to what we see in Congo today, and we don't know what this will lead into tomorrow.
We have seen when M23 rebels or with the Rwandan forces entered to the city of Goma, some of them have been, from what we see from the videos that has gone viral, cheering and welcoming these forces. How do that view? So some of them want perhaps to be governed by these forces.
Well, the truth is the regime in DRC was not favored by all the Congolese people, especially people from that part of the country who have been suffering under the promises of peace and promises of protection of the current regime for more than, I think, 7 years now, or actually even before that. So at the end of the day, people get to the point where I can call a breaking point, where they don't have trust in you anymore as a leader or as the government. And in order to have a peace with the new uh, with the new group of kind of leader or the rebels, they have to applaud because you don't want to be massacred. You don't want to show that you are against the rebels. They will massacre you. So um one of the things that they have been trying to push on that part of the DRC was to, as I said, the agenda has been to. There have been a lot of agendas with that part of with the Congo. One of the agendas has been to break the Congo in 5 countries, right? So one of the things that the Western powers that are sponsoring this terror have been trying to push is to get the population of that country, because that population of that of that part, the population of that region, are attached to the Congo, to the power in Kinshasa, or to the Kinshasa authority, right? They identify themselves as Congolese. They want to be part of the Congo, but you don't want to come overnight and say that you want to break the country, because people won't accept it. So you want to subject them to a suffering that will eventually make them realize that it's better they accept to break apart from Congo. Maybe it will take them away from the suffering that they've been suffering while they are part of the Congo. So I think it's mixed. But the bottom line is that the regime in Congo is not favored by all the Congolese, including those that are abroad and those that are in the country. So some of the people may celebrate it, but just like in every country, you have opposition. You have people who don't like the regime. You have people who like the regime. If something bad happened to the regime, of course, those who don't like the regime, they will celebrate. So that's what is happening there.
Thank you so much, Brother Cabala. My questions are done, but please allow me to bring some questions from the chat section because I asked my viewers here to drop a question for you. Now, I have a couple of questions. One is from my brother Osie. Let me track his his question. Yeah, he asks, will a strong man from the military, meaning from the military of DRC, emerge to save the country like Captain Ibrahim Traore of Burkina Faso?
That's going to be a wish. We don't know what's going to happen. But we wish for Congo to have a proper leadership that understand that for you to create the condition of peace in the east part of the Congo, you need to be prepared for war because peace is a result of war. Peace works hand in hand with war. You cannot long for peace if you are not prepared for war. And what we have in Congo is a situation where war has been imposed on us. And we have had military, such as Kabila himself. Joseph Kabila was a soldier, was a general at the, at the head of the country. He was unable to end the war in eastern part of the Congo. We have had the current president, who he's a civilian, a politician. He seems to be not capable of also ending this war. I think we can just hope that one day, as we are moving forward, we'll have a proper leadership that really is pragmatic and realistic and put all that is required in place to make sure that this war does not continue, to make sure that the people who are killing our people who are transforming themselves into tools of Western imperialism and Western oppression must understand that they can also suffer the same consequences that they are actually inflicting on other people. So I think that's the leadership that we want, a leadership that is responsible, leadership that is really visionary, and that is pragmatic. Not too much speech, traveling all over the world, spending a lot of money, doing all this extravaganza, but not being able to protect your country. That's not the leadership that we wish to have in Congo.
So basically, it's like those of the Sahel states, right? They
Yeah.
deliver. They simply deliver. Next question is from Anton Delem. Are there any grassroots political movements active in DRC?
Yeah, there are many. There's opposition. Uh, there's a governing party or governing coalition of a lot of parties. In Congo, you're talking about plus 500 political groupings. So, of course, they are political movements. But for what reason, that is really arguable. In a country such as Congo, with all the up and down going on there, people can be really very opportunistic, and they can call themselves anything they want to call themselves, but to serve different agendas. But I would believe that there are genuinely people who are at the grassroots level organizing the masses for, for the right agenda.
Um, Last but not least, before I close it, I want to give you the platform, what your final word to Africans globally. What do you want them, to know or to leave them with a message? What kind of message you want to leave them? And I want to say this because when on Monday morning, most of us were okay. Like Rwanda invaded with its forces backing M23, the eastern part of DRC. Now, as we enter on the fourth day or fifth day of this event or this war, in the past couple of days, we have seen this viral speech by Julius Nyerere, and then people are, oh, perhaps we need to start to listen to Paul Kagame, and this is what the people are denied of their citizenship, this and that. I'm not saying either side is right, but we need to understand what's happening. So there is this convince and confuse from both sides. So yeah, and information is everything, it's power. So with what kind of information or message you want to leave to the African people?
Well, I think the truth today is one: Paul Kagame is a Hitler of Africa, is a distraction, is a cancer that is actually tearing Africa down. That is the truth. I don't know how you look at him, because being responsible of plus 6 million death in Africa, I don't know what qualification do you have better than Hitler. So that is what he is. But I want people to separate Rwandese people from the regime in Rwanda, because these are two things different. I don't want to be promoting
Always.
hatred against Rwanda, against citizens of Rwanda, some of them who are against what is happening in Rwanda now, because I know many of them in Canada, all over the world, who are opposing the brutal regime of Paul Kagame. However, I think the world need to know that Kagame is responsible for millions of deaths in Congo, including Museveni, who is two-faced as well. And we need to work for peace and unity. That is the ultimate solution for Africa. There's nothing that Rwanda can gain today that will not be taken away from it by the same Western powers that it's trying to serve. There's nothing that Uganda, there's nothing that Congo, there's nothing that any individual country can gain today in terms of economy, in terms of development, that will not be wiped away tomorrow if the game changes. We know how Libya was developed, and we know what Libya looks like today. So this is how the situation can change. Even though you can think that Rwanda is a clean country, Kigali is this and that, you don't know what happens in the 2 years. Those infrastructures can be destroyed. It happened in Libya, it happened in Egypt, it happened in a lot of countries across the continent. So I think the best solution for Africa will be the unification of our institutions, right? And that will give us the power that we need to liberate Africa. So I think that's maybe my message now, to all African people out there. And I do really think that the government in DRC must try to find an immediate solution for people whose life is disrupted right now, because we may be comfortably making comments away because we are not affected.
Yeah.
But if you have to wake up tomorrow morning and realize that you have to flee from your home and go and live maybe in a bush, in a camp somewhere, because there's a war coming, your children can't go to school anymore, your businesses are shut down, then you begin to realize that you need support of the world. So by that, I'm saying that Congo right now needs support of the world in anyhow we can support, making noise, pushing the policymakers to take some kind of measures, anything that can really make sure can really help the situation in that part of the country to change so that people can get back to their normal life will help. So that will be my last message. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Brother Cabala, for being here, for shedding light on what's happening in DRC crisis. And I hope this is not the first time, meaning regarding on the topic of DRC. Hopefully we will meet again, although we really want this thing to settle as soon as possible, and for the people to go back to their place, but the discussion can continue, and so that we can understand and prevent some things. Thank you and have a good evening.
Thank you so much, Queen. All the best. Peace and love.
Same here. Bye bye.